Okay, we'd like to welcome everyone to episode 3 of the Keep Rochdale Affordable podcast. As always, your hosts are my wife, Adena Ferretti, and John Ferretti, both residents in Building 5 of Rochdale Village, Mitchell-Alma Cooperative. And as usual, we're going to let Adena start us off in the spirit of partnership to allow her to get some stuff off her chest. It's always something that every time we do this podcast, there's always something that she has to get off her chest. So, but I'm sure that a lot of residents can relate to Adena's frustrations or being motivated to talk about these issues. So, Adena, the floor is yours. While Adena is speaking, I'm going to be sharing out the feed to various Facebook groups and on social media to try to build a wider audience. And feel free to comment in the comments on social media. And if you want to speak to us live, you can text me at 917-678-0557. And if you do, and let us know what building you're in your name, we'll call you and put you on live. Also, we're going to be putting those comments up live as well on the screen. So, Adena, the floor is yours. Let us know what you're motivated to talk about this week.
Okay, so we have a couple of things that we're going to talk about this week. We're going to talk about the petition for the board petition that's being passed around. We're going to talk about the things that we noticed that's going on in Rochdale Village. We're also going to talk about the convectors. That's just our opinion that we have in our home, and we're also going to talk about the we went to a meeting last weekend with some of the persons that are trying to be elected to come mayor, so we will also share that with you. And also we'll talk about the news media that we're trying to bring here to shed some light on the carrying charges. So those are the things that we have in our agenda to talk about. Okay, so let's talk about the board of directors petition. So there's a petition going around with the board of directors that they've written up and they wanted all the residents to sign. Anyone that did not sign that petition, you should sign that petition for the board of directors that they created and to be sent around, to be sent off. And also, I lost my thought. Okay, so to sign the petition that's going around, and also that I want to note that a lot of residents have volunteered to help to have the petition signed. So residents are out there getting motivated, and they're taking pictures with Sean, and Sean is going around from building to building, giving out the petitions to the residents who want to volunteer to go around from building to building, section to section. They're also in the mall. I think they was there yesterday. John was there yesterday. There were some residents there today, having people sign in the petition. John noticed that a lot of people in the mall were saying they didn't live here, so that was an issue. But he did get at least 25 yesterday, 25 petition yesterday, so that was great.
We got 150, by the way,
You you got 150 so far?
in the mall. In the mall when we were at that table. Okay.
Okay. So you have a table, and you were able to get 150 signatures, which was okay, because there's so many people live here. I think everyone should be signing that petition. I also noticed that the board of directors is not out here volunteering to have the petition signed.
At least we haven't seen them.
Okay, so
I
we
don't know.
haven't
Maybe they
seen
were
them.
doing it in their own building, but we have not seen them out pushing their own petition,
Yes.
which we
So
find a little odd.
yeah, so I think that the board of directors, I think the board of directors should have been out here also pushing for those signatures to be signed. They're the one that created it, so their faces should be out here. And don't tell me that they're doing all this work and they can't do it, because when the time for election comes, everybody's gonna pop up and start being all over the place, and you're gonna hear whatever is going on. So I think that the board of directors should have been out here at the face of this, trying to find out, trying to get these petitions signed so we can get the carrying charges decrease, the amount of the carrying charges decreased. Um, Also, um, while I was having the petition, there was another time way before this. I was going floor to floor, buildings to building, giving out the petitions. And I noticed, like, since I've been living here, I have only been in my section, section C, building 5. I've only been in my section. So it is nice. It is a nice. It's very kept well. The floors are kept nice. To me, the it's nice. But when I went to other buildings and other floors, I was like, let me scratch my head. Oh my God, is this Rochdale? Because the place was like falling apart. There were holes in some of the hallways. Garbage was on the in the not the staircase, but they were on the floor. Mails were not picked up for days. Like nobody lived there. The light was dim. Certain things was happening, and I was like, I don't like this for Rochdale. I didn't like that for Rochdale. So, I going around and giving out the petitions and getting involved. Let me see, the other part of what's happening, and I didn't like that for Rochdale. I think that they should do better with that.
Yeah.
The next thing, also, I noticed that Adrian Adams came here the other day. In the big mall, the door was broken. I don't know how long that door was broken for. Maybe the one beside Chase right there. I don't probably was broken maybe for a year, 6 months. I don't know, but it was for a while. But the day that Adrian Adams came here, that door was fixed. Okay? When I walked out there, the parking lot right beside Chase, they were washing the floors. They were washing the concrete and mowing the lawn and just making it nice over there. There were so many maintenance people inside of the big mall. Everybody was dusting, everybody was cleaning, and it was just being so nice and clean just for this woman to come here. But the people, as I said, when I walked around Rochdale inside of the building, it was dilapidated. Did I say that word right, John?
You're dilapidated.
It
That's
was dilapidated. Dilapidated.
dilapidated.
So I was like, if they could have done that for Andrea Adams,
Adrian Adams.
Adrian Adams, how come they can't do that for the people that live at Rochdale?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just just to follow up, I'm done sharing out the videos, but I just wanted to respond to some of the things that Adena brought up. Um, I mean, the relationship that we have with political figures and elected officials and with our management company and with the board of directors is completely backwards. Um, we should not be trying to impress Adrian Adams. Adrian Adams should be trying to impress us. She should be fighting for us. That's the position that she fought for to be elected to. The speaker, not just a city council person, the speaker of the city council. She needs to be providing some kind of rescue for a supposedly fixed income, affordable housing cooperative that was built by the trade unions, that was built by the civil rights movement. It's her job as an elected official, as it is the job of all elected officials, to safeguard our past gains, things that we've won as communities in struggle. It's not for her to be impressed with us. It's for us to be impressed with her and her commitment and her willingness to stand up and fight to keep those gains. And the story that Adena tells about maintenance going full blast on overtime, using God knows what resources to make Rochdale look good to this political figure who wants something from us. She wants our votes. She wants our support. She wants people to donate to her campaign. She needs us. We need her to actually stand up and fight for us. And I just don't see any. I think the relationship is completely backwards. I don't know if people have seen, but Gene Hall, the president of the board of directors, put up a post in the Real Deal Rochdale Facebook group earlier today. I'm just going to pull it up here so I can read from it. I'm not going to share my screen because we've been having problems with that. I got to get rid of the streaming service because it's not allowing me to share as well as we should be able to. But let me just pull up that post. Okay, so Gene Hall says, asking this question to see what folks would propose to shareholders. These figures are for illustration purposes only. You take in $600,000 and you have $725,000 worth of expenses. What would you recommend to your shareholders they do? This is a fictional breakdown for the $725,000. The first item is the mortgage, $165,000. Second item is payroll, $150,000. Third item is benefits, $75,000. Fourth item is insurance, $115,000. Fifth item is the water bill, $90,000.
19? I thought it was
No, no,
16.
these are
Oh,
fictional
the fictional.
numbers.
Okay,
These are
okay, okay.
fictional numbers.
Right.
For illustration purposes. So then she
Okay.
says vendor restoration $70,000, vendor electric $50,000, vendor elevators $80,000. How would you recommend the payments, and what would you tell the shareholders? So just to respond, like what's not it's not that Gene Hall is telling us
John.
is not telling some of the truth, not giving us some information. It's that she's only giving us half the picture, and she's asking us how will we calculate how to pay these bills without giving us the full equation. Not in her illustration is how much money Summit Management Company is making in profit directly off of Rochdale. Not in her equation is why is why are vendors not asked to share some of the burden of a crisis that they're sounding the alarm about to the residents? Why are they not included in this community? Why are they not asked to pay more than a 2% rate of inflation every year on their rental agreement? What's also not included, why are the same vendors constantly used for every project? Genesis is used for almost every project here at Rochdale. And they have a history of cost overruns, incompetence. They're also the ones who brought you your convectors. How are residents feeling about those convectors when they break open your walls, when they don't put up a sealed netting or a plastic containment system to keep God knows what from being aerosolized from our walls? I spoke to another resident recently who had cancer, and she knew the rules for NYCHA, and so she made them put up a sealed netting like a plastic to contain all of the dust that was being aerosolized by ripping open our walls. But even myself, I didn't even know about the state rules until she told me about them. And this was after they already came and broke up all my walls and aerosolized God knows what in my apartment in
The
violation.
dust was crazy.
Yeah, in violation of the law. They're supposed to know the law before they go breaking up things in our apartments. They're supposed to know that there's a potential for carcinogenic toxins being released when they do that. They're supposed to be informing me as to how they're going to keep my family from being negatively affected health wise from their construction. Yet they did none of that. And I'm sure we're far from alone in terms of residents who had for days on end their apartments ripped up without following these guidelines.
Yes,
So when you want
because
to
we
talk about
didn't
an
do
equation,
that.
I'm sorry, when you want to talk about an equation, you have to give all the information.
Mhm.
And aside from which, it's not the resident's job to solve this problem. We didn't create this problem. Adena, did you sign a $195 million loan with Wells Fargo? I didn't. I
No,
didn't.
I
They
didn't
didn't. They
say
didn't
that.
ask us if that was a good idea, did they?
No.
So then, why is the onus on the residents to solve this problem instead of our elected leaders? Go ahead, Adena. I'm sorry.
Well, I just wanted to talk about the convectors that and in our experience, the dust was so bad. I didn't know that dust was going to be so bad, and I think that because of the experience that people were having, I think that they should have gave a little bit more information to the residents about this dust that was having. I had to that night, the second night they came, I think it was the second night, they didn't leave out of here until I think 2 o'clock in that morning.
Mhm.
2 o'clock they left here in the morning, so we were up from 7 in the kitchen. We had to stay in the kitchen until like 2 in the morning because the pipe was broke. So upstairs broke, downstairs broke, and the traffic just kept going in and out, in and out. Oh my God, it was so terrible. And then the next day again was another hell. They were here like all day. So I think like a 3 hour tour took like 3 4 days. And my neighbor down the block, she had the same issue. So almost every apartment, well, not every apartment, I'm not gonna do that. Like a lot of apartments that they did go into, when that big wall in the bedroom, something happened. Most of the time, a lot of things happen. So the water was, oh my God, the water pipe broke, so they couldn't leave it because they had to fix it. So it was really really bad with the convector, and then it doesn't work. To me, um, you turn it on. I mean, everybody's gonna say, maybe jump on me and say, "Oh, we don't know how to work the convectors." But everyone, a lot of people are having some issues. Not everyone, but people are having issues with it. Um, you turn it on, and you're hot, 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 and then after that, now you're cold, 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 and then you're hot, 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 and then you're cold, cold, cold. It's just like crazy. It's not. I think you're supposed to have it, and it feels like it don't feel warm. It feels like a furnace that's burning. That's what it feels like. It's not a comfortable heat that you be like, okay, I turn it on, and it's the other convectors that we had before. It was okay to me. It was fine.
Yeah.
This one, it has like a heat that the heat is not good. It's like a burning heat, and it's just not good. If you turn it on like for maybe an hour, it gets warm, but then you have to turn it off back again, and they keep saying don't turn it on, don't turn the windows. But I don't think it's effective. I don't think those are effective convectors.
Yeah, and the
And if we are like, if we, John is very suave with all that stuff, turning it on or whatever. But what about an elderly person
yeah,
that don't know these things, or what about a person that has disability? Did you consider that it doesn't
yeah, how
function
small
for
the
them? That's
displays
a
are,
problem.
how small the displays are in terms of, and then the displays they provided are all cloudy. How is this stuff brand new? That's what I want to know. Where was the oversight on what materials they're using? Because these things look like they fell off Uncle Vito's truck.
Oh
Okay.
wait, and then they didn't our the molding that rats could come through. They're still not fixed. I still have to go
Yeah,
down and
three
call because
weeks
they
later,
ran out.
right?
They ran out of molding. And remember now, you need those molding to be taped up because then the little mice start coming to your apartment. And I heard people in the region, real Rochdale, was saying that mice have been coming to the apartment because it wasn't sealed up properly. So my
Right.
bedroom isn't sealed up.
So
And
my question to the management company and to the board of directors is, when you get these number of complaints from residents, and it's always the same story, resident after resident, they can't all be lying. So why do you keep hiring the same company over and over again? Genesis, $31 million they got for these convectors. Why is the same company used over and over and over again? There's no accountability, and weeks later, you still haven't fixed the damage they caused. And weeks later, no one has responded to the fact that they were violating New York State law in the way they were doing the installations. So everything is like flipped on its head. You have the president of the board of directors asking a laundry list of questions to the residents about how she should respond to a crisis that she's been on the board repeatedly for years. You mean you didn't, when you ran for office, you didn't have any kind of answers for these questions about how things should be done? Well, here's a suggestion. Maybe you shouldn't have a for-profit management company at a supposedly not-for-profit affordable housing cooperative that's supposed to be overseen by the state. If it's overseen by the state, why don't you have any state funding? When I first raised these questions about state funding, they thought it was laughable that the state would provide any funding to Rochdale. It's like,
they
oh,
did.
they
They
never have.
did. They
They
did. They
never provided
laughed.
any funding.
Hmm.
Why was it a resident who has to go online to look up the fact that you got $80 million of aid approved for New York State Mitchell-Lamas last year on April 19th and 20th of last year, and not a dime of it has been distributed to any Mitchell-Lama in New York State? Why is it residents in Real Deal Rochdale who went online and found out there was another $850 million being proposed in the current state budget? $750 million for maintenance, for upkeep, maintaining these facilities, and another $100 million for operating expenses. But yet we've heard nothing about that. from our board of directors or the management company. There's no effective lobbying going on. Adena and I can take our weekend to go and meet with seven people running for the mayor of New York City. Every time they have a public event, that's an opportunity to put pressure on them. It's an opportunity to place demands on them, to find out if they know what's going on here at Rochdale. But not one board member could find the time to show up at any public event to place any public pressure on our elected officials. But it's on the residents to go and do this. Not one of these elected officials reaches out to the media to decry the fact that Rochdale Village, again of the civil rights movement, is on the verge of a financial crisis that could lead to privatization, that could lead to kicking senior citizens out in the street. But not one appeal has been made to the media by them. Why? Why is that not your job? I want to know. Like, seriously, you come up with a laundry list of questions for the residents here. How about you answer some questions about
Well,
the
I
quality
think
of
that,
leadership we grew up?
well, John, I think, sorry to cut you off, but I think that one of the questions that I had is a fair question, is that why did you come to the residents with the 40% or 44% or whatever, 22 to 44% rent increase? And why didn't you go out and market Rochdale? Or why is it the burden on the residents? That's what the question should be asked. That's what Gene Hall should be telling us about. Why is that 22 to 44% on the
27.
backs of the residents? There are other things. What other things could have done to pay those back bill? Because according to what was said in the meeting, I think the board meeting last week, it's two different things going on. There is the raise for the inflation, probably would have been 16%. But then what happened is HCR came up with a new implementation where they're saying that, look, you have all this back money that you didn't pay. You have all this debt that you have here, like this package of debt. Your package of all the Rochdale debt. And they said, well, how are you going to pay this debt? How are you going to pay this debt? You have this new inflation. So yeah, there is inflation and it's fine. Oh, everybody having that, it's fine. But HCR seems, this is what Gene Hall said, HCR seems to come up with a new thing that says, look, they look at Rochdale debt and they said, well, how are you going to pay it? And that's the reason why now they tack on both new inflation and the old of how you're going to pay the old debt, and that's where the problem comes in. So now what I think that the question that Gene Hall proposed, I think that the board of management and
Board
the
of
board
directors.
or the board of director and management should pay off the whole debt, the old debt, and we the residents should pay the new one. You know what I'm saying?
They're
Since you
not
want to
going
ask these questions, it gotta be answered. You go pay the old debt that you incur, and we'll just finish up the
to.
new
Well,
one, and I think
one
that's
way,
fine, and we
one
all will be
way,
happy.
yeah. Well, one way they can get out of the debt that they are currently in is to use their brains and advocate with our elected officials. This is a state program. The state has an obligation to keep it affordable. And one of the ways they can keep it affordable is by refinancing that ridiculous parasitic loan they took with Wells Fargo. $195 million. I want to know how much of the money that we've paid over the years to that Wells Fargo loan has gone to the interest and how much has gone to the principal. That was a bad decision on their part, not our part, on their part. And they need to get us out of that loan and any other bad loans they've agreed to. And the way to do that is to have public financing. You don't go ask banking parasites who destroyed the economy in 2008 and kicked everybody out of their homes. And nobody knew what a home was worth because of their credit default swaps and other financial instruments they use to destroy people's generational wealth, largely communities of color. You don't ask people who are our enemies to refinance our debt. You ask state institutions, our elected officials, to stand up and be accountable for their promises. Their promise was to keep it affordable. Their promise was to keep it affordable for people on fixed incomes. Their promise was to pass it on to future generations and to expand that program. And what they've allowed them to do is to throw up their hands and say there's nothing they can do, and that's just not acceptable. Sorry. Um, there's a comment here I just want to put up. This is a bit off topic, but I heard that when someone moves out of Rochdale Village, they will not receive their equity back. That might be a topic for another day. Go ahead, Adena.
Yeah, I think someone, this is, I don't know how true it is. I didn't move out of Rochdale yet, but I heard that there was a new lease that was forced to that they were residents were forced to sign, to say that they have to. Okay, so say I decided I'm going to move out of Rochdale, I have to pay 3 months rent, no matter, regardless of what. I have to pay my 3 months rent, and then after you pay your 3 months rent, then they'll be able to, give the apartment to someone else or whatever. But by the time you pay back the 3 months rent, and they come in here and tack on all the holes that's in the wall, if you've been living here for 20 years, you're not getting back anything. Because I know people that left, they probably got $100 back. They didn't
Yeah,
get back anything. But the problem is also, you move out of Rochdale, and then also you have to pay 3 months rents. You're not living here. You packed up and left, and you still owe Rochdale 3 months rent. And
that's
it
ridiculous.
doesn't matter, even if they even if someone is living in the apartment, like, because the waiting list is like 2,000, almost 3,000 for one. I don't even know. I think that waiting list is maybe 5,000 on that, those all the waiting lists combined together for Rochdale. So I'm not sure why, you got to pay that 3 months
Yeah.
rent. But
The other thing that's wrong with this relationship is, you see how Rochdale will be penny ante about every single mark that's been made in the wall you have to pay for. But they're not paying me a day, 2 days salary, or Adena 2 days salary for staying home with their bullshit, with their maintenance people, and having to be on their schedule and having to be held prisoner the entire day. And on top of everything else, being exposed to God knows what kind of hazardous dust in our apartment. you know this relationship is entirely backwards. If you read the founding documents of the Mitchell Lama movement and you read the Rochdale Principles, what it says is that no one is better than anyone else here, that there's supposed to be one person, one vote, that this is supposed to be a democratically run institution, that it's supposed to be not for profit, and that it's supposed to be a community that's supposed to be expanded, that's supposed to be fought for the expansion of this community. It's not supposed to be just the houses that are currently involved in that community. However, what I think is really going on here, to be honest with you, like, we've reached out to the media won't cover this. Hard to understand why they don't care about an affordability crisis in the middle of a mayoral election that is all about the affordability crisis that largely working class and middle class and people on fixed incomes are dealing with in New York City. But the media will not cover it. We've reached out to 30 plus media organizations, and only one of them has even gotten back to us. And and yet they never follow up. Same thing with politicians. I mean, you have a state assembly person, Vivian Cook, who's in the witness protection program. Okay, she does not respond to any emails, calls to our office. We have sent thousands of emails from our residents, and not one response from her office. She's been elected since 1998, serving in this position, often without any kind of competition in the primaries. And yet, when Rochdale is drowning in a financial crisis, and Rochdale is on the brink of financial insolvency, and our residents are being asked to pay 44%, she's nowhere to be found. That's just simply unacceptable. And a lot of these politicians need to be primaried. Let's be honest about that. If you're in the witness protection program when our affordable housing program and our cooperative is on the brink of insolvency, you don't need to be in that seat. So then the other question is, why are we in crisis? Why is there an interest in allowing Rochdale to be saddled and burdened with hundreds of millions? If you add all of the debt up, you're talking about maybe $500 million of debt for an institution that produces $80 million on a year, on an annual basis, in terms of income. How do we get into so much debt, and why is there an interest in keeping us in that debt? And if you look at the history of Mitchell-Lama, you can go to the um, there's a website called CU4ML. It's Cooperators United for Mitchell-Lama, and they have a history of the Mitchell-Lama program, and they talk about that it was based on a belief that the government had a responsibility to invest in its cities and its citizens. Legislators recognized that substandard housing, crowded and unsafe and unsanitary conditions, and the shortage of decent housing contributed to the breakdown of communities and the deterioration of urban living, making urban areas undesirable places to live, work, and raise families. Unwilling to let this happen in New York, they enacted the Limited Profit Housing Companies Law, which is the Mitchell-Lama Law, to encourage developers to construct housing for people of low, moderate, and middle income, understanding that such an investment would allow communities to grow and flourish, thereby expanding social and economic opportunity. So what happened is this was all federal land, right? The land that Rochdale was built on was given by the federal government, okay? It was owned by the federal government. It was given to them for free. Then what needed to be done was money needed to be raised to build the buildings and all of the grounds and all of that. But that happened in 1964. So from 1964 to 2019 is an awful long period of time for that debt not to have been dealt with. But the answers that we get from Gene Hall and others is that the $195 million loan was a refinancing of past debt, and that the overwhelming majority of that money was not accessible to Rochdale. Instead, Wells Fargo gets to keep the money, and there's a process through which we have to apply to get access to money that was already loaned to us, which to me makes no sense, but this is what you get when you deal with financial parasites. These are the kinds of deals you're going to get. So there's a poison pill in the Mitchell-Lama law that says that under certain circumstances, there can be a buyout provision, so that you can have you can have an offer to residents to basically buy their apartments, to make it no longer not for profit, to make it for profit. And I believe that's exactly what the management company over many years has been seeking to do by saddling Rochdale and other cooperatives like Co-op City and all these other Mitchell-Lamas into tremendous amounts of debt, and high interest debt at that, predatory debt, so that they can manufacture a crisis, so that they can justify this as a solution: privatization, gentrification, turning their backs entirely on affordability, turning their backs entirely on the principles that people fought for during the civil rights movement, which was integration, which was equality in terms of opportunity. And all of this is kind of like a plan to continue to keep us in tremendous amounts of debt, so they can make Rochdale and the Mitchell-Lama project, the whole program, look insolvent, look unattainable, look like it's mismanaged and that it can't be run properly because there's no funding. And that's why they don't appeal to the state to demand the funding that obviously, if you're going to keep a cooperative affordable, the only way to keep it affordable is with subsidies from the government. It's our tax dollars going to support us. That's what we need to fight for. And I never hear that from any of these elected officials or from any of the management company representatives. And the question is why? Why is that not a priority for them? Why is it something that is never brought up? And I think it's a very likely scenario that you have real estate parasites like the Trumps and others circling around like the sharks that they are, salivating over Rochdale. And they are telling the media that they shouldn't cover this. They are telling politicians to go to sleep. I'm just making an educated guess based on what I see. If that's not the case, then your elected officials need to explain why it is that Rochdale gets no support, why it doesn't seem like 25,000 people who vote matter to any of these politicians, why the news media completely ignores us. There has to be a reason, and believe me, it's not for lack of effort. It's not for lack of effort. We've reached out to over 50 elected officials, every single official who represents this district, that represents us in the city council, the state assembly, the state senate, the governor, the assembly speaker, the majority leader, the mayor, the public advocate, and nobody, the Queensborough president, and nobody responds. And the question is why? And people talk about, oh, well, people don't want to deal with Rochdale. They don't want to, management companies don't want to apply to be the management company here. But the question is why? Why? Because they know something's up. And they know that these bidding processes are rigged. And they know that the management company is entrenched here and makes all the decisions. And until that changes, nothing is going to change here. We're never going to get respect so long as we let this management company walk all over us. But I wanted to give you a chance to comment on all.
No, you said everything.
But like I'm just being honest with residents based on what I see. I'm not trying to throw cold water on your anger or your frustration or the injustice of what is going on here. And I'm certainly not trying to demoralize you in fighting for what we need and not what they think we deserve. However, we just need to be honest with ourselves that it doesn't make sense. The story they're telling us doesn't make sense. That they can't effectively advocate to get any money for Rochdale. And you see it even when they hold these meetings. They held the special meeting, right? They held a special meeting and they had a politician's office, James Sanders, come to us and tell us a fairy tale about how they're going to propose a new bill to fight for $50 million dedicated directly to Rochdale. Well, riddle me this, Batman. Why would you have to ask for new funding when you already pushed and approved $80 million in funding to New York State Mitchell Lamas that none of the money has been delivered, and it's been 11 months? Why would you do that? Why would you propose an additional $850 million in the current budget, supposedly to go to Mitchell Lamas? But you know what? It just didn't come in time to stop the increases. It's just not going to get passed in time to deal with the crisis we face. So, maybe we'll get the money someday, but you're not going to get it in time to stop senior citizens from being thrown out of supposedly affordable housing. And we're not going to get it in time to save them from completely unaffordable carrying charge increases. So then what's going to happen? They're not going to pay their carrying charge because they simply can't afford it. And then what's going to happen? We're going to evict them. Who is going to pay for this crisis? It's just going to get us more and more and more in debt. It's going to continue to make Rochdale unstable so that these real estate parasites can come in and take advantage. So Cynthia Dolphin commented, this is on Facebook, I was wondering what the status of the press release is. Is it because no one responded? Well, part of it is that. Part of it is the lack of response, but part of it is that the community advocate that I was working with, his name is Tony Herbert. He's a community advocate in Brooklyn, and until recently he had worked for the mayor's office, and he was going to help us, but unfortunately he had a medical situation where he was hospitalized, and he broke his arm, and he was still recovering from those injuries. So that has been the hold up in scheduling the press conference, because despite the lack of interest, we still need to have a press conference where Rochdale Village residents are heard. Adena, go ahead.
But I think that the board of directors are trying to hold their own press conference. So
Okay, well,
I
when we
haven't heard
spoke,
anything about that. So I don't know
yeah,
what's
when we
going on.
spoke to Adrienne Adams, she said that something is in the works and stay tuned for whatever that's worth. Now, I know from speaking to people who have been in contact with the board of directors that they have been planning a meeting with public officials, and it's still up in the air about when that's going to be scheduled. I know they had a preliminary meeting, at least they talked about that at the last board meeting, that they had a preliminary meeting with Jamani Williams and people from Adrienne Adams' office and James Sanders' office and a few others. But so there is a plan to have a meeting with public officials. And when I spoke to Adrienne Adams, she said that she promised that it would not be a conversation between the board and them and the management company and the elected officials, but that the whole point of the meeting was to speak to residents. And I hope that what she's saying is the case, and we have to make damn sure that it is the case. But I don't think that we can just count on that meeting that the board is planning to solve all of these problems. We have to continue to keep the pressure on the politicians, and we have to continue to try to wake the news media to force them to cover this. I'm also reaching out to um, a lot of news media sources that are like not owned by big corporations, um, that are independently owned um, media outlets, like the Majority Report, um, and there's many others that do regular YouTube shows and that speak to activists all the time about their struggles and publicize them. So we're hoping that we can move in that direction. But at the same time, like, I don't want to keep promising that a rescue is coming that is not being fought for by the people who are elected to actually advocate for us. Cynthia Dolphin also asked, did you hear what option was chosen and when the increase will take effect? Okay, the option that was chosen was option one, which is a 22.3% increase in 2025, followed by a 4.5% increase in 2026. Now, that was the lowest of the total increases that were offered in the three options. As far as when the increase will take effect, no one seems to know. But my guess is that since they keep talking about their fiduciary responsibility and the importance of a balanced budget and all of these catchphrases, that it's going to be soon, that it's going to be May, June, something like that.
Yeah, but the
But
thing about it is that we don't even have, they want to fix the budget, but the people don't even have time to, catch up with it, catch up with the budget. So say it is, say the lowest is 250 dollars per month someone has to increase. Now that could be easy for some people, but some people it could be a lot. So for them to, for next month, for you to come up with that 250, it could be a problem because you already planned your vacation. You're going to wherever, and now that money's going to be taken out from your expense. And that's, I'm not saying anything bad about it, but that could be like a little mental breakdown right there. You thinking, because it's
yeah,
not something that is coming, but if they said by the end of the year or something, then you could be like, but I'm wondering, like, what could stop them from not passing the rent increase? Like, what possible could they do, or the people do? We're doing a lot, but what could stop them from not passing that rent increase? Or there's nothing that can happen. They're going to do it regardless of what.
yeah. I just want to put up some comments on the screen. Tabitha has also put a question about if the lowest option is chosen, then we won't have a balanced budget. So they'll have to do another large increase in the third year, and that's very true given the outstanding debt that they owe. Um, However,
Well,
like,
how could they get rid of that debt? Because then the debt is the problem. So
yeah, the debt.
how?
Okay, the debt is the problem, but the solution is obvious. This is a state-run Mitchell-Lama program. Just like the city and the state have an obligation to deal with the people who are behind on their carrying charges because there was an economic crisis that was created in the city that was beyond a lot of people's control, and they will pay. They will be responsible for these people when they become unhoused. These people will need services when they become unhoused. It's in their interest to provide revenue to prevent that from happening. Well, in the same way, it is in the state's interest to live up to their promises. They promised affordable housing. Affordable housing needs funding. There's no way to keep it affordable when everything else is being attacked by the cost of living crisis. Just stand on the sidelines and do nothing while banking parasites are making a fortune off of our backs, while they're refinancing debt at high rates of interest. It's a pyramid scheme. It's going to collapse, and they have an obligation to live up to their promises. And the state in the hands of the Democratic Party are the people we need to be making demands on. Instead, the board of directors proposes getting a Federal Housing Administration loan at 5.7%. First of all, the idea that they're going to get that rate of interest with Trump in the White House is a fantasy. Secondly, why would you tell Trump and the fascists that this institution is financially unstable? Why would you want to do that? They're looking to privatize everything. They're looking to liquidate any public programs for our communities. Why would we want to tell them that we're financially unstable and we need their help? The people who we can demand help from are the people who rely on our votes, the people who say they're fighting the fascists, the people who say they're for democracy, they're for the working class. These are the people we can place demands on. Yet none of that has been done. And it's deliberately not been done because they want to throw up their hands and say, oh, well, what can we do? We have a fiduciary obligation to pay the debt. The debt is unjust. The debt is predatory. And the state has an obligation to crack down on Wells Fargo and all these other parasites and what they're doing to feed off of a supposedly not-for-profit, a supposedly affordable housing program supported by state law. It's ridiculous that they make this so hard, that they make it like this problem is unsolvable. And they're all collaborating with our management company, paving the path for privatization and gentrification. If you don't do what is in your power to do to stop it, you're allowing it to happen. I'm sorry. You may be a good person, you may not want that to happen, but you are not doing anywhere near enough to stop it from happening. And that's a problem. When I'm drowning, I want a life preserver from people who say they're on my side. And I don't see any coming. And that's just not acceptable. Adena, go ahead.
Yes, I agree with you. I don't see anything coming. And I think that you are right. They're trying to privatize it. Just like how, because we can see what's happening in Jamaica, on Jamaica Avenue. We can
Absolutely.
see all that coming back. And it's creeping back. Well, it's not creeping, it's kind of moving fast now. And it's, coming back to our area. And this, as this area or this little community that we have, the Long Island Railroad is right here. JFK is 15 minutes away.
Mhm.
The apartments are beautiful. Once they're kept good, they're beautiful. So because I've been to the city, and I've been to an apartment that costs $1 million, and it does not look nothing like this. It's like fist little, the outside is nice, like the doorman is nice and everything, but when you go inside the building, you're like, wait a minute, a one bedroom is what? And then it's on the water, it's on the east end and stuff like that. I've been into a couple of those apartments, and so Rochdale apartments are very nice. So imagine that, they do creep up this side, and that is what they're doing. It's just like on Jamaica Avenue, the people cannot afford the rent. They make it so, oh, you cannot afford the rent, so you have got to leave. And that's what is happening here. You can't afford the rent, you have got to leave.
Yeah.
And then they tear down these little places, tear down the community, and then they build up these tall buildings and all of these little shacks, because in these buildings the apartments are so small anyway, so
Yeah.
yeah, they're gonna gentrify it,
Well,
or
I mean,
whoever,
that's the thing.
whatever class with the money that can come and live here. Well, but our little senior citizens and our kids and stuff will not be able to live here, and most people won't be able to live here because people make under 60, 70,000. I mean, what is the medium rent? What is the medium salary that people make here? Rochdale should see that. They should have put those numbers together and said, what is the medium rent that, I mean, sorry, what is the medium salary that people are making? Can they afford this?
Yeah.
And that's the thing about it, is when you do these things, a lot of wrong things start happening.
Yeah.
It goes sideways.
Well, the other question is like they they voted unanimously for these increases on January 27th of this year. Not one person voted against it. You have 5 people who abstained. I don't understand how when the proposals are anywhere from 27 to 40% increases and you abstain on a vote. You don't know how to vote. You don't know whether to vote for or against increases like this. Not one proposal was raised. Not one motion was raised to amend these proposals. And they didn't just know about these increases on January 27th of this year. This has been coming for a long time. They knew Rochdale was in a tremendous amount of debt. They said they've been sounding the alarm. Sounding the alarm is great. What is better is concrete proposals for how to get us out of this crisis. And I just don't see any of that coming from the management company or from those who are on the board of directors who are elected to safeguard this community from exactly this kind of circumstance. When you got elected to the board, you didn't know that real estate parasites are circling around here, salivating over Rochdale. Location, location, location. They wanted their mitts on this forever. And for you not to be clued into that and not to sense the danger and not be reaching out to these public officials long, long ago about the crisis that we were facing, it's just it just means that you're not ready for prime time. You're not ready to deal with the enemies that we're facing. And that's just not acceptable. We need people who understand what's going on in the world to be on these board of directors. Yet, who can be on the board of directors? 5,860 people in a community of 25,000 can even run for the board of directors, can even vote in the elections to determine who will be on the board of directors. This kind of functioning is a recipe for disaster, and it leads to the kind of leadership that we have. And just like the fascists, they want us to be demoralized. They want us to give up, and they want us to have no self-respect and to say, well, that's just the way the world is, and what can we do? And you can't fight City Hall, yada yada yada.
John, remember, I think a couple of months ago, I was on one of Jean Hall podcasts, and she was saying that
It was a Zoom
yeah,
meeting, right?
huh?
That was a Zoom meeting she was
Yeah,
holding.
it was a Zoom meeting that she had, and she was saying that she was telling the management company that they should have the increases that we had recently. I think it was two or three of them that we had recently. She was telling them that they should have raised it more. So don't raise it don't raise it $34 a month. Raise it more than that, because it's gonna come a time where it's gonna come a time like this. This is what's happening. So she was saying to them, look, raise it more than what it should be, because it's gonna come a time when there's gonna become a problem. And here it is. The
Right.
problem is right here.
Right, but the problem even with that is her only solution is the same solution as the management company, to allow our residents to be the blood donor of choice for Wells Fargo and making sure we pay our loans on time. Are we the problem or are they the problem? They're a bunch of predators who are taking advantage of a community of color. They are engaging in predatory loans at high rates of interest, and they are making a fortune off of us. But yet, we are supposed to be responsible and pay our debts on time and don't miss a payment, because then we're the problem. And that's the overall problem, is that everything is turned on its head. We are responsible. We're the ones that are paying all of our bills. Is Jay Williams paying all his bills? He wants to tell me about, well, some bills just have to be paid. Oh, really? Oh, really? Some bills have to be paid. So do you think that when I have a car note or an car insurance bill or a life insurance bill or money to send children to college or to pay for the elderly, that I get to opt out on certain bills and say, well, I'm not going to pay that one this month. I'm just going to take a little vacation on paying that bill while I pay the other bills. Do you think that the response of the people who I owe money to is going to be, well, oh yeah, that's perfectly okay? At the fantasy world that people are living in, that they're the ones that are responsible and we're irresponsible. Yet we're the ones that are paying on time. And we're the ones that they're targeting for attack. But we're irresponsible because we don't understand they have a fiduciary responsibility. What about your responsibility to the residents that fought and built this institution? What about your responsibility to affordability? What about your responsibility to have respect for the civil rights movement? you're a young black man and I don't respect you as a young black man running your own business? Where's your respect for the black community? Where's your respect for the historic gains of the black community, you fucking predator? Where is your respect? Where is your fiscal responsibility been? And that's the problem, is that, they turn everything upside down as if we're the ones that want to be irresponsible. We're the ones that want to get away with not paying. Look, we all know what the rate of inflation is in New York City. It's not a goddamn secret. Go online and do a Google search. You know what the rate of inflation in New York City is? You go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The New York area has currently a 4.2% rate of inflation, core inflation 4.4%. Okay? It's listed. This is not a mystery. It's not a mystery what the cost of living is. Our increases should be no more than that rate of inflation. Just like when we fight for wage increases in a union, we need to be fighting for at least that amount. If not more, we're not getting a raise. Well, the same thing here. We're more than willing to pay the rising cost of living that's fair, that actually reflects reality. What we're not willing to do is to be gouged. What we're not willing to do is to be gaslit. What we're not willing to do is to be lied to and told that we have a responsibility as shareholders. Listen, we're not in this for a business relationship, as Adena talked about. We're not getting anything out of this when we leave here. They're robbing money from people. People are not making profit off of their relationship with Rochdale. Summit Management Company is, Chase Bank is, Crunch Fitness is, Key Food is. So don't give me that shit about our fiduciary responsibility and how we are shareholders. That's a bunch of bullshit. We're residents here. We're residents here at a fixed income, affordable housing community that we help build. People like us help build it. So don't tell me about, our responsibilities to pay for your mismanagement. Sorry, that's not okay. Also, Tabitha asked a very important question on Facebook. She said, where can we find copies of the contracts that we currently have with the vendors? Well, I've been asking that question for a long time. And you know what I get? I get that I'm spreading conspiracies and misinformation and saying that there's corruption. Well, they won't provide this information. Why isn't that information on our website? Only Rochdale Village residents can log into that website. It's not like you're making the information public. I've never heard of a corporation that functions this way. The shareholders, us, ask them for the documentation of the contracts that they have with vendors, and they say, oh, make an appointment. Go make an appointment to come down to our office and see our records. What are we going to make, 25,000 appointments? That's ridiculous. That information should be a public record. It should be on our website. I don't see why anybody who says they care about democracy can function this way. So the question is, that question should go to the board of directors. Why don't you put this information on our website? Why don't you want us to know what agreements you made with various vendors? How are we possibly going to get our hands around the scale of the crisis if we don't know what you've already agreed to? Where is the Key Food contract? Where's their rental agreement? Now, I'm sure they're going to say it was in a newspaper way back when, and they slipped a piece of paper under your door. That's gaslighting. It's half-truths. Yeah, you may have covered your ass and put a flyer under somebody's door that gets lost with 1,000 other pieces of unsolicited mail. You may have put it in a newspaper months and months and years ago. That is not transparency. That is attempting to cover your ass and pretending that you're accountable and pretending that you have transparency and that you function that way when you don't. I'm going to put up another comment that we received. I don't know what the increase is going to be, but at this point, I'm looking to move out of Rochdale Village. With the increase this year and next year, I don't know if I can swing it. We are not getting raises at the rate of these increases. I mean, unfortunately, there are a lot of people going to be in that situation. And this did not have to happen. Let's just reassert what's really going on here. This crisis is not a natural disaster. It is not unforeseen. It is not in any way something that couldn't have been prevented. All that needed to happen was effective political advocacy, effective political pressure, making sure that whenever these politicians went anywhere, that there were residents from Rochdale Village there to put pressure upon them and to make sure that they knew exactly what was going on here and to demand real solutions, real funding, real next steps, a real way forward. And they just didn't do it. So although the majority of the blame goes to Marion Scott Real Estate and Summit Real Estate and the ridiculously backdoor kind of functioning that they've been doing for years, God knows what kind of kickbacks they're getting to have the same vendor constantly win all the contracts. Obviously, the overwhelming majority of the guilt for what happened here is on them. But don't tell me that you didn't know. Don't tell me that you didn't know it was a crisis, and don't tell me you didn't have an obligation to provide real leadership. I'm sorry. I'm not accepting you're the dog ate my homework bullshit. Sorry. You don't get to say, what can we do? Otherwise, don't run for leadership. Why did you run for leadership if you have no ideas? If you have no commitment to hold this management company accountable? Why do we need you in that position if you're not going to do that? If you ran for office swearing up and down that you were going to do that you were going to get rid of the management company. Remember the campaign promises? So where are you at? Where are you at now? And how do we get from where we are to where we're going? Don't you dare ask the residents to navigate your way out of this. You have to have some leadership and some spine and some courage to actually propose a way forward, because this ain't working. Get it?
Okay.
Adena wants to give our puppy Chewy an opportunity to have a cameo.
All right,
So
we got to
Chewy,
say goodbye now. We're over an hour.
lift him up, lift him up.
So
You gotta
we
lift
will
him up.
see you in
Lift
2
him up.
weeks.
Lift him up.
I left him up. We got
You
to say
gotta give him
goodbye.
his cameo. Chewy
Yeah.
saying goodbye.
Yeah. Bye.
So in any case, we're going to continue to do the advocacy work that we have been doing. We're going to continue to work with the community advocate, Tony Herbert, and others to try to find a way to get the attention that Rochdale needs for the scale of the crisis that we're facing. We're going to continue to work in a united front with the board of directors where possible. We volunteered our time to get signatures going door to door. We volunteer our time to make sure the politicians knew and that they understand the scale of the crisis. We're going to continue to do that. However, we need many more people to step up. We need many more people to become involved. It's astounding speaking to residents how little residents know about what's going on here. And I understand that many residents don't have Facebook, many residents don't have YouTube, they're not on social media, but we have to find ways to bridge the divide, and we have to find ways to have at least a small number of residents step up and help those who are already playing an outsized role. Tabitha, for one, has donated a tremendous amount of her time. Please show up and sign the petitions. Please get involved. Any chance for us to have community together is a way that we can begin to increase our own morale and also find out what other people's experiences are. Because the point of this platform, the point of any other advocacy, is to give the mic to others, is to amplify their voices, is to find out where we are and how we can get to where we need to be. But there has to be so many more people in the picture for any of this to change. And we look forward to working with you all in doing so. Adena, I want to give you the last chance to say goodbye. Say goodnight, Crazy. No fleshed out summary here.
I think you said enough.
That's her way of telling me that I'm long-winded and I'm speaky.
Yes.
Right? Yes. Okay. So we thank everybody for their time. Please continue to get in contact with us, and we'll see you out in Rochdale and hopefully at many more events to fight to demand self-respect. Bye, Chewy. Say bye. Chewy just got his hair cut, so he wanted to show it off. Okay. Have a great night, everybody. Be safe.